Most gardeners have been taught that composting is a long checklist of rules, ratios, and special techniques. You'll often hear about balancing browns and greens to the exact number, monitoring temperature with a thermometer, or turning the pile every few days like it's a second full-time job. While these methods can work, they leave many people discouraged or confused. But here's the truth. Composting has been done successfully for centuries without fancy tools, without overthinking, and without obsessing over precise measurements. The Amish, who are known for their deep connection to the land and straightforward farming practices, have perfected a method of composting that is as simple as it is effective. And that's what we're going to break down today. By the end of this guide, you'll know exactly how the Amish approach composting, why it works so well, and how you can apply the same method in your garden without wasting time or energy. This isn't theory, it's a practical system that produces dark, fertile compost season after season. If you've struggled with overcomplicated methods before, this may be the reset you've been waiting for. The Amish rely on compost because they grow food on a scale that demands fertile soil year after year. They don't have time to fuss over piles with thermometers or try to calculate a 30-to-1 carbon-to-nitrogen ratio on paper. Instead, they build compost piles in a way that nature understands. Their philosophy is to layer what they have, let microbes and worms do the work, and stay patient while the pile matures. This method is rooted in observation. They know that in a forest, leaves, branches, and animal droppings fall to the ground in layers, slowly turning into humus without human intervention. They simply replicate this natural system, but in a more controlled space on the farm. The result is compost that's rich, crumbly, and packed with life. You know, one of the biggest reasons gardeners fail at composting is thinking they need special inputs, like coffee grounds, seaweed, or all sorts of exotic amendments. But the Amish approach is, well, much more grounded. They just start with what's abundant and close at hand. On most farms, that means livestock manure, straw or bedding, crop residues, and kitchen scraps. For a home gardener, this translates to things like grass clippings, shredded leaves, kitchen vegetable scraps, prunings, pulled weeds, and honestly, whatever organic material is naturally part of your yard or garden. Instead of stressing about having the perfect ingredients, the focus is really on gathering organic matter consistently. The pile works because of diversity, not perfection. The Amish method doesn't involve mixing greens and browns into a slurry or constantly flipping piles. Instead, they build it kind of like a lasagna, one layer at a time. Here's how it looks in practice. Start with a coarse base such as sticks, corn stalks, or straw. This creates airflow and keeps the bottom of the pile from going anaerobic. Then add a layer of manure or green material, followed by a thicker layer of bedding, leaves, or dried plant matter. You just continue layering in this way until the pile reaches about 4 to 5 feet tall. The alternating layers balance moisture and carbon automatically. For example, after clearing a bean patch, the stalks might go down first, followed by manure from the barn, then a cover of straw. Over weeks, more kitchen scraps, weeds, and fallen leaves are added in layers, always finishing with something carbon-rich on top to keep odors down. By the end of the season, the pile has stacked itself into a balanced structure. Instead of turning the pile weekly to manage heat and airflow, the Amish simply pay attention to moisture. The pile should feel like a wrung-out sponge damp but never soggy. If it dries out during summer, they'll splash it with a bucket of water. If it's too wet from rain, they'll top it with straw or dry leaves. This minimal intervention allows fungi and bacteria to establish themselves naturally. While the pile may not heat up as aggressively as a hot composting system, it steadily decomposes at a slower, steadier pace. This results in compost that's less prone to burning plants and more balanced for soil life. Perhaps the hardest lesson for modern gardeners is patience. The Amish are not in a hurry with their compost. They accept that a pile built in the spring will not be ready until the next spring or fall. This slower breakdown, really mimics the natural forest floor, creating compost that is stable and long-lasting in the soil. For example, a pile started in April, with manure crop residues and straw may not be applied until the following April. By that time, earthworms have moved in, fungal threads have spread through the layers, and the entire mass has been transformed into a sweet-smelling dark material. Instead of quick but unfinished compost, this method provides humus that feeds soil microbes for years rather than weeks. Once the compost is ready, the Amish spread it generously, but not excessively. On vegetable beds, about 1 to 2 inches of finished compost across the top is more than enough. On larger fields, it may be spread thinner, but always consistently across the soil surface. The idea is to feed the soil life steadily, not to drown plants in raw organic matter. For a home gardener, 1 wheelbarrow of finished compost can cover a bed that's about 4 feet by 8 feet with a 1-inch layer. If the soil is really poor or sandy, you might want to go with a thicker application, maybe up to 3 inches in the first year, and then just do lighter top-ups in the years after that. The strength of the Amish method isn't really about precision, but more about rhythm. By building piles naturally, letting them rest, and applying the finished compost each season, you can renew fertility without stress or constant effort. This cycle is sustainable because it fits right into the rhythm of farming. Clear a crop, layer the residues, cover with manure or straw, and then, let time do its work. In contrast, overcomplicated methods often fail because they demand constant input and attention. Thermometers, daily turning, and strict ratios can create great compost, but they also discourage many gardeners from starting. The Amish system removes those barriers and relies on trust in nature's design. Start by choosing a corner of your yard or garden where a pile can grow without being disturbed. Lay down a base of coarse material like sticks or stalks. Begin layering with whatever organic matter you have, a bucket of kitchen scraps, a layer of leaves, some pulled weeds. If you have access to manure or old bedding, add that as a nitrogen boost. Always finish a session with a dry layer to cover the fresh material. Over weeks, keep adding in this pattern. Don't worry about ratios, just focus on diversity and balance. Wet things with dry things, greens with browns. Keep an eye on moisture and let time handle the rest. By the following season, the pile will have shrunk to 1/3 of its size and turned into usable compost. At the heart of the Amish method is respect for the natural cycle. Nothing is wasted and nothing is forced. Every stalk, leaf, and scrap eventually returns to the soil, transformed into fertility by the smallest of workers, microbes and worms. By adopting this approach, gardeners can free themselves from the burden of overthinking compost and instead trust in the same process that has fed forests and farms for centuries. If composting has ever felt confusing or overwhelming, take a step back and follow the Amish example. Gather what you have, layer it simply, keep it moist, and give it time. That's all it takes to create rich black compost that will keep your soil alive for years to come. For more practical guides like this, be sure to subscribe to Soil and Crop Doctor and share this video with fellow gardeners who might be stuck in composting confusion. Together, we can bring soil back to life without overcomplicating the process.